Welcome to my tech catch-up for Friday the 2nd of June 2023. Well, it's only 4 sleeps away from the biggest Apple reveal since over a decade, the AR/VR headset. Apple have a little nice teaser graphic in AR that you can view on your iPhone. I tried mine out in my home at my workstation, and it's pretty cool. And some specs have leaked. Apparently each eye will have a 4K display with 5000 nits of brightness. In comparison, Microsoft's HoloLens only had 500 nits. I honestly can't wait. You'll be hearing all about this next week. Someone who's very prepared for the AR VR stuff that's coming is Andrew Hart, who runs an AR agency and does experiences for retail stores. And he's got some really cool examples on his Twitter page of things like indoor AR navigation, points of interest for pointing your phone at London and then seeing little pins and text descriptions of famous landmarks. So really excited to see what he comes up with as well. He actually shared on Twitter the other day a imagining of what the headset experience could look like. Check it out. I also love this indoor navigation video that he's pinned to his Twitter profile, where the UI switches between an AR view when he's looking around the supermarket and a map view when he tilts the iPhone down, and it behaves just like a regular map application. Check it out. Pretty cool, hey? Andrew has recently launched an open source framework called Mirador for building point of interest AR experiences with RealityKit, Apple's AR framework. So, for example, that London thing is an example of how you could use it. He's also got examples of Yosemite pointing at the mountains and getting pins with titles. Apparently AR is generally location agnostic and only relies on device motion in 3D space, with no concept of GPS or real-world location. So this library that he's developed allows you to provide an anchor, and then it figures all of this stuff out for you. Interesting. A lawyer who filed a court document with the assistance of ChatGPT is now in hot water because he cited 6 non-existent cases. Apparently he hadn't heard of AI hallucinations and did not verify the output. He now has to prove next week why he shouldn't be sanctioned. I had a look at the court case and thought there were some pretty funny examples. So here's a list of the cases that ChatGPT made up. Shaboon versus Egypt Air, 2013. Varghese versus China South Airlines. Peterson versus Iran Air. Martinez versus Delta Airlines. Estate of Durden versus KLM Royal Dutch Airlines. And Miller versus United Airlines. Some of the cited cases did actually exist, but under different names. Still, I bet he won't be making that mistake again anytime soon. China is already regulating AI. In April, the Chinese internet regulator published a draft regulation on generative AI. Some of it is quite similar to what people are advocating for in the West, such as ensuring transparency in the way the data was collected and trained, so it doesn't infringe on IP privacy. Other things, less so. It calls for identity verification of all users of generative AI and says that the output should reflect the core values of socialism. The penalty for breaking these rules is around 20k Australian dollars. Also, the Biden administration is apparently conflicted on how much to regulate AI, with some members of the administration pushing for more regulation like the EU, while other members such as national security pushing for less regulation so that the US remains competitive. Interesting, I hadn't thought about the national security aspect of this debate. Arguably one of the coolest areas of generative AI is creating 3D models from text prompts or 2D images. There's a GitHub repository, 3Studio, that has collated lots of different models together with examples of each. One such model is Prolific Dreamer. Here are some examples of textured 3D objects and the text prompts they were generated from. Look at this. This was generated from a delicious croissant. Look at the detail there. That looks totally photorealistic. And all from a single text prompt. You can also generate entire 3D environments, also called NERFs, with a text prompt. So this prompt was a DSLR photo of a hamburger in a restaurant. The detail there is extraordinary. While searching for NERFs, I also came across this interesting paper by a whole bunch of researchers, including Matthew Tenkik. And there are some really amazing examples here of creating entire 3D environments from 2D images. So you take a whole bunch of 2D images of an environment or an object, and then this model will just create a 3D version of that. And the really cool thing about that is once you've got the 3D scene, you can do things to it like relight the scene, for example. So if this is where this is now, imagine where it's going to be in a few years. Everyone's having fun with generative AI in Photoshop at the moment. In fact, some people are modifying paintings by old masters with AI. Here's an example of the Mona Lisa, where generative AI was used to fill in more of the background. In fact, the Mauritshuis Museum in the Netherlands is currently displaying an AI-modified version of the girl with a pearl earring by Vermeer, while it's on loan to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam until the 4th of June. Also, on Wall Street, they're playing around with ways to use AI. There's a Bloomberg article that goes into this in depth that I'll link in the description. Interestingly enough, Sam Altman thinks that using AI in quantitative trading could be one of the most lucrative uses of AI in the near future. Think about what Renaissance Technologies built with algorithmic trading that has returned around 66% annualized between 1988 and 2018, the best track record on Wall Street. And imagine that getting supercharged by AI. For some non-AI news, a city for longevity research has been proposed in Montenegro. So they've got a pop-up city called Zuzulu, which they're hoping to turn into their own jurisdiction so they don't have to deal with regulators and can experiment more easily with medical tech to slow down aging. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, now onto some dev stuff. So this week I was looking for a simple way to deploy an express.js API for free. After finding that Vercel was not the right platform for this, they're focused on front-end apps, I thought there must be a simple way to do this with a great developer experience like Vercel, as opposed to using traditional infra providers like AWS, Heroku, DigitalOcean, etc. Well, I found it. Railway. Their tagline is "Bring your code, we'll handle the rest," and it really delivers on that for the most part. I connected my GitHub account, selected the repository that had the API app in it, and then clicked to deploy. I did have to tell it which port to use and that it needed to deploy a publicly auto-generated domain, but it was still a very smooth experience. What API was I deploying? Well, it was an API to help with intercepting mobile phone and email codes in end-to-end tests, which you can learn more about when I present next Tuesday at the Sydney Offenders Meetup. I'll also be doing a talk about what's new in CSS at SID CSS next Thursday. So come along, and there's also an online stream for SID CSS for those wanting to tune in online. Another thing that I was playing around with this week was Near, which is a JavaScript-focused crypto platform. And what I really like about this is that I don't have to overcome a language barrier in order to play around with these crypto concepts and get my head around smart contracts. It's all in languages and tools that I'm familiar with. So I did the Hello World Near example, and they had the option to do Gitpod or run it locally. So I tried both, and I was really impressed with Gitpod. I haven't used it much before. So essentially you get this entire developer experience and environment all within the browser, so you don't have to run anything locally. So I was able to fire it up, install dependencies, which worked totally smoothly, and then it deployed a server that opened in a new window, and then I could play around with this new app, make code changes in VS Code if I wanted to, and get all of that developer functionality that I'm used to locally, but all within a browser. And as if to prove how useful this is, I also tried to run this example project locally and immediately got into a build error, which I would have had to first fix before being able to play around with the demo had Gitpod not been an option. So check it out. All right, for those of you into the TV show Succession, I am, and there's the finale this Monday, which is pretty epic. Check out this video of how the main theme song was composed. Well, have a great weekend and have a great WWDC 23. See you in the next video.